My name is Sonny Rocket. My pronouns are he, they, she, and I'm a local burlesque, semi-drag, shadowcast performer in the local burlesque drag queer scene in Buffalo.
How long have you been performing?
Not that long, just 3 or 4 years. Yeah, I started through the Francis Bacon experiment, through the shadow casting scene, and at the same time, me and my partner started like taking burlesque classes, and we started stage kittening, which is like what we call like the the stage hands, the like assistants in burlesque shows. We started doing that, and kind of like that was our on-ramp to being involved in shows, and eventually started performing through that and everything. But yeah, it hasn't been that long for me.
Why Sonny Rocket?
It's always fun like brainstorming stage names when that opportunity comes about. And I was brainstorming with my partner. I was just like pitching out like characters that I like just randomly. We're just I mentioned the Rocketeer, this like niche comic book character I really like, and I don't know, Sonny Crockett, the one guy from Miami Vice. I like that guy. And then she's like, Sonny Rocket, the Dirk Diggler moment in Boogie Nights. I just saw it on like immediately.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool, like especially as you become more ingrained in like the queer scene. And so like I came from a more standard kind of conservative background, and I didn't only start doing this kind of thing until like a few years ago. And just coming from that like into this like world of people living authentically in a way that feels so different from the sort of mainstream conservative background I grew up with, it feels very like there's some kind of an allegory to be drawn with like X-Men or like Matrix groups. Everybody has their like their given name, and then their cool weird little nickname that they made up that they go by, and like this like separate little world. So yeah, it kind of has like a whole different energy when it comes to just like the community itself, outside of the performance aspect.
Do you have any like very memorable performances or like any crazy story from it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, every show is like, the personalities, the people that run this stuff. It's always some kind of there's always some degree of, beautiful chaos going on. We put on a show of like, we did a fundraiser show right here at 26. We're upstairs from 26 right now. We did a fundraiser show where we performed the numbers here that we wanted to perform at Stonewall. So we're raising a bit of funds to get our troupe out there for that, and we put together a whole programming slate of your queer awakenings, like what kind of like we all performed numbers based on like what made us realize there was somebody who did like a Roger Rabbit thing because Jessica Rabbit made them realize that they were gay, and like me and my partner did like a Matrix influence thing about like Neo is so like baby girled by Trinity, and about just like and as well as just like looking beyond like sort of the binary programming of like the social programming of that a lot of us kind of come from. So that was a beautiful thing to be a part of. But there are just so many shows that we've done over the past few years that are memorable for so many reasons. I mean, my debut is a big one. I did a Spider-Man themed number with my partner at a superhero themed show at Mohawk. There was the show that me and my partner did. It was a Halloween show where we got inducted into the Glam Vamps. That was a beautiful memory. But
I feel like the Spider-Man one sounds fun. You playing with like...
It was, yeah. Yeah, my partner was like a sexy femme Doc Ock. It was great.
Oh, yeah. I actually was really confused by the etiquette of going to a burlesque show. Originally, this is a school project, and I'm like, recording people get like really naked, and I'm like, I don't know if this is good or not.
A lot of times they stated up front at shows what the etiquette is, whether or not photos and video are allowed. For a lot of Glam Vamps events, which is the troupe I'm a part of, we hire a videographer or photographer to record the events, and in cases like that, we don't want like anybody taking video at like, but it all depends on the event. That'll often be stated. A lot of people, if they haven't been to a drag or burlesque show before, they're like, you know, the whole like tipping aspect, you know, like touching. A lot of times like drag performers can be like touchy with audiences, so it's important to go over consent, whether or not performers or audience members are okay with being touched and how to communicate that. When it comes to like the tipping aspect, like burlesque performers especially love money just being thrown in their faces, and but if people are there for the first time, it's understandable being like uncomfortable with that, not wanting to be like disrespectful or anything like that. So yeah, it is often stated up front in show. It's a lot of like what performers or other people at the show have or haven't consented to. That's, you know, a big thing for us.
As for like the Glam Vamps or really any sort of burlesque community, how do you think they are towards people within the LGBTQI?
The people I perform with and kind of invest my time and energy with are very supportive of all types of people within the LGBT community. That's a thing that, again, is like different depending on who you're dealing with. Like sometimes there are prejudices that exist within the queer community. There are certain groups that, you know, aren't as embracing of, and I'm not speaking in Buffalo, just in general, some people, you know, will be really embracing of like queer males, but not as much of like trans people or like lesbians and anything like that. So the community in Buffalo on the whole is very beautiful and supportive, and the groups that I'm a part of specifically definitely make an effort to always include people of all stripes, of all kinds, you know, different gender identities, people of color. It's you know, diversity and inclusion is really important to the Glam Vamps, the Francis Bacon Experiment, another group I'm a part of, and for the people that I know is a really important thing, and it's a really big thing in the Buffalo community. Has its issues, but on the whole, it's a really beautiful scene.
When you're performing, do you have some sort of like alter ego when you do that, or is that still yourself?
When I established my stage name and everything with Sonny Rocket, I guess at first I was thinking of it as distinct from my own like personal identity. I made like, you know, there were like separate social media presences for like, you know, my government name and my stage name and everything. But as time went on, I felt like the Sonny side of me is sort of just who I was turning into, is just like sort of who I was more comfortable being. So more often in like social situations, I would introduce myself as Sonny instead of my government name. So I feel like that's like a side of myself I just kind of grew into. But then more recently, just within the past year, I've actually started getting into drag more. And for that, I actually developed, you know, I came up with like a different stage name and sort of a different thing, and that is definitely more of like a persona that's goes by the name Itsy Blitz, and you know, on days when I'm particularly bored, I'll like come up with like lore that exists between like Blitz and Sonny Rocket are two different people, and Blitz is like really weirdly irritated by Sonny Rocket and is just like cussing him out on social media all the time. So there's like a beef that exists between myself and my drag alter ego. So yeah, it's sort of there's sort of
You're Batman.
Well, secret's out.
Doing burlesque helped you like explore yourself and find your identity?
Yeah, I would say as a queer person, it certainly was I started getting into burlesque right like when I started, you know, realizing that I was queer. So it's been a beautiful way for me to, and you know, just like physically, like, you know, the clothing and makeup that come along with presenting for burlesque. Also, you know, I would do like some kind of some like twinky little outfit and like some pretty makeup for like a number, but then I realized, oh, this is actually, I just love the way I look. I love the way this makes me feel, and I'm gonna start doing this, some version of this like in just my day-to-day life. So yeah, it definitely helped me kind of just come into my own in terms of gender and queerness. So yeah, absolutely.
I think burlesque is probably getting more like popular. Like there's more people that actually know what this is, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Would you say that the attitudes towards burlesque are changing for the better or worse?
It's certainly becoming, there's certainly more of an awareness of it. It doesn't feel as underground as maybe it used to, and I feel like that's come about in like good and bad ways. I mean, I feel like you have like, someone like Dita Von Teese, who's like a really popular, like, she's a really well-known celebrity. She's like the queen of burlesque, and she's like a really great, she lifts up the art form, she lifts up other performers, and she, she like belongs to the culture, but she kind of has proliferated it a lot too. And then you have, people, like you have like the Taylor Swift Life of a Showgirl thing, which like, everybody has their own opinions on Taylor Swift. She's not like, I'm not personally into her, but there are a lot of people in the scene, a lot of like queer and drag burlesque people that love her. You could argue that the Life of a Showgirl thing is sort of like, is it like co-opting the burlesque scene a little bit? Maybe, but it also might be putting more of a lens on it as well. I think that, especially with like, I think burlesque has always been and continues to be it's so tied in with the queer community, and I think it continues to be kind of a haven and a refuge for a lot of people who are more sexually open-minded and who are queer, and it still continues to provide safe spaces. I think that there's been like the social political climate in America over the past few years has taken kind of a scary direction. So I feel like there probably is like more, the kind of puritanical streak that runs through our country is, probably, I feel like both elements of it are being elevated. I think burlesque has a more public awareness, and that sort of mainstream conservative aspect is probably, their outrage will increase, but at the same time, a lot of people who are more open-minded, who think differently than that, and are looking for a safe space to be different and to be open. I think more and more people, that awareness, it kind of cuts across both lanes. So I think that, not sure if that answers your question, but I think that it's a growing awareness that can kind of take a variety of different reactions.
I feel like there are some people that take it more as like burlesque is like objectifying, or it's similar to like stripping. Would you respond to someone?
That's something that I used to think years ago as well. I think the people that really own the drag and burlesque space are the most self-empowered people. They are, dedicated performers. They're, deeply invested in their craft and in the good of their community. And I think the whole idea of being, objectified, it's, this is nothing that people need to be rescued from. This is like, it's just a beautiful way to express yourself. There's certainly overlap with burlesque and strippers. I think they're two distinct things. There are some burlesque performers that are weird about being compared to strippers. I don't feel that way at all. Strippers are amazing and they're super talented, and sex work is work. So that's not a comparison that bothers me in the slightest. Yeah, from the outside to kind of have that idea of it being objectifying, but in this, and especially in a community like Buffalo, everybody's so self-propelled. It's not like we're being handled by like talent agencies that are like forcing us to do this or that. People that might be more closed-minded about things like drag and burlesque. I think it's all about exposure, just destigmatizing. Things seem bad or scary when you're not as familiar with them, you don't understand them. But if you go to see some shows, or if you know queer people, if you know drag and burlesque people, that stigma kind of goes away, and you kind of realize you understand the situation and the scene a lot better. And so I think that it makes sense that attitude exists, but understanding is a great way to kind of combat that.
You talked about making money through this. I was curious, is this able to sustain you financially? Is it realistic to be I'm full-time burlesque? Is this a side hustle?
For me, it's very much a side thing. I know very few people that are able to make a full-time living performing. I know some people that are full-time performers that aren't in Buffalo. They live in Las Vegas. They're backup dancers for Dita Von Teese. They're very well, and they're always out there when they're not performing with Dita. They're musicians as well, and they're always at it, and they're well established enough. Not only are they established, but they're living in a place like Las Vegas where there's just so much more. But being a full-time performer in somewhere like Buffalo, I love Buffalo, but it's a smaller city, and I don't know that even the more successful, more well-known performers I know have day jobs. So I would say it's definitely, I don't anticipate ever being able to make a full-time living through just performing. I would love to be able to do that, but I don't think that's a realistic expectation in somewhere like Buffalo. In a bigger city, maybe, but it's still, the audience is bigger, but so is the talent pool as well. So I would say it's a great goal if someone wants to shoot for that, but you always got to be, you probably still are going to want to have a day job, at least something part-time. Yeah.
That makes sense.
So,
how has burlesque changed the way that you view yourself?
Performing for other people in general, and especially for the queer community, the audiences are so often queer. It's definitely helped me to realize kind of the ways that people, everybody finds different kinds of people attractive, and I became very well, even before I realized I was queer, I realized that gay men seem to be very into me. My identity as a twink, as a little, I'm queer, I'm not gay. That's more of a gay thing. Obviously I'm gay partially, but I'm queer in general. And yeah, I've really come to embrace the gay twink appeal that I have, and other, seeing other people online. My partner helps, my partner has curated my whole style and visual identity. She's so she has such a good eye for just what would look good on me and everything, and people online that oh, this is style you could tap into, and that all comes from burlesque, of experimenting with looks and seeing what people like, and it's helped me to embrace so much about the way I naturally am, the way my body is. It used to be the fact that I'm gender wise, I am a bit I'm androgynous and a little effeminate, and I've always been that way. And as a kid and as a young adult, it used to I used to try to come across as a little bit more guy-ish, but because that's just what I grew up around, and that's kind of what you're supposed to be like. But that's another beautiful thing is I've always been a little effeminate and sensitive, and I just feel I just feel more comfortable in my own skin than I ever have before, and that comes from the expression of burlesque. It comes from the support of my partner and this community, And you know, it's a really beautiful thing. It's just things that I used to not like about myself are now things that I just feel so happy embracing. So
what do you hope that audiences will feel or take away from your performances?
We, at the very least, we hope people just are entertained and have fun. If nothing else, that's a wonderful thing. There's always new kind of talent coming out of the scene. Sometimes people will go to shows and will be like, oh, this is so great. I feel like I could do this. I want to do this. I have like ideas of what I could do. And that's always beautiful. We love like lifting up new talent that comes on the scene. Sometimes people can be emotionally affected by performances. That doesn't happen to me so much. I tend to go like more of a campy, silly route with a lot of my performing. But we just did an event recently at Duende, where the Vampire Prom was, called Cryptids, Creatures, and Queers, that Intersect put on, and they brought together drag and burlesque performers along with local poets, and we had I was one of the burlesque performers working with a poet, and everybody chose like characters or topics relating to like monsters. The idea of, you know, like around, you know, it's you know, it was like a Halloween show, and the idea of tying like monsters or the otherness of monsters with queerness and the otherness of that, and kind of tying those things together. And I was able to, I was paired with a good friend of mine who's also a performer in their own right, but a poet as well. We decided to do a Frankenstein themed number, and they wrote this whole like 3-act poem that kind of like was like a super abridged retelling of the story. We chose to do sort of like this narrative adaptation where they played Victor Frankenstein and I played the monster, and they wrote this beautiful poem that kind of encapsulated the story and kind of focused on it from a queer kind of othered perspective, you know, feeling outcast for just being who you are. You know, the creature didn't ask to be created. He's just trying to live his life, and everybody is trying to tear him down for things that just, you know, aren't his fault and don't have anything to do with him. And there are so many people in the queer community that can relate to that. And there are some people that at the show that told us that they felt it on an emotional level, which is something that I haven't experienced as much, but it was, you know, that's such a beautiful thing. So it can affect people in a variety of ways. It can be that, it can be creative inspiration, it can be just like super fun, and people just like have a great time at our shows. There's a lot of great takeaways people can have.
Sonny, for people watching this in my class or anyone who stumbled onto this like via YouTube randomly, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You can find the Glam Vamps across all those social media platforms, including Patreon, the Francis Bacon Experiment as well, our Rocky Horror and other movie Shadowcast group. Both those groups, we put on shows in Buffalo all the time, different venues like 26, like Hot Mamas and Duende and the Screening Room, and you can look up those groups, look me up, and